COVID has upended a ton of norms in the airline travel industry. Sweeping changes are happening quickly. For example, change fees were eliminated for most US domestic carriers almost overnight. And with high volumes of refunds and cancellations, as well as leaner staffing at the airlines and the agencies, they're exchanging tickets and sometimes bypassing old typical rules. This shows us that the distribution landscape can change. It isn't set in stone, and it can change and change quickly.
Yes, and while that's a great thing to see, there's still a lot of opportunity for the industry to make these kinds of changes easier to implement. So as these changes are rolled out, they were applied differently in different sales channels. So an example for that, a very vivid example that we've been dealing a lot with here at ARC is around refunds and changes, especially since COVID came along, and more specifically, refunds. So airlines had to try to react very quickly and really kind of on the feet, making decisions day by day. And so in some cases, they looked to refund, for instance, to an airline voucher, even though that ticket may have been issued initially in the travel agency channel. Well, in almost all of those cases, that airline voucher can't be taken over to the agency channel. So you have now all of these vouchers sitting out there that where I, as the customer or the traveler, initially went to the travel agency and I may want to go back there to use that voucher, I can't do that. I'm actually going to have to go to the airline to use that voucher. So that's really a very simple but extremely common example of something that's happening, that's ongoing in the industry right now. If our industry can really create a more kind of cohesive foundation, an environment with greater consistency across all channels, which is kind of obviously our theme today, where everything looks and acts the same, this will simplify things for everyone. Airlines, travel agencies, corporate travel programs, and of course, the traveler. If we can build that foundation, the next time a major industry event kind of shakes things up, we'll be able to roll out new initiatives and make big changes with far less complexity.
The biggest thing I think about omnichannels, it's more like a spectrum versus, I think traditionally you have indirect and you have direct, and they're two very different silos. I think to me, what's important is they're becoming more of a spectrum where the direct is moving more towards the indirect by adding new tools and functionality, and the indirect is becoming more direct through things like NDC and things like meta and branding and real content and so forth.
So your spectrum comment was really spot on. We keep talking about the airlines wanting to make that consistent experience across channels. The thing that kind of comes to mind for me would be like what a Southwest Airlines is doing versus many of the legacy carriers. So I'll just, I'll pick United, for example. Southwest has traditionally been heavily focused in the direct market. You had to go to, southwest.com or their mobile app. They've recently expanded into the GDS and the agency channel, allowing bookings to come through there. So they're moving along the spectrum from direct and moving a little bit with, more indirect. Whereas the more sort of what we traditionally call legacy carriers, but so for United, for example, has been heavily indirect, although they've been moving direct for a long time, but they're definitely putting sort of focus and energy into their websites, into their mobile apps. So they've been making this journey from indirect to, through to direct for some time. And it's not to say that one is going to be moving all the way across and the other is going to be moving all the way across, right? It's just that they've been moving from kind of polar opposites towards the middle, covering that spectrum.
So omnichannel has been a priority for ARC for a few years now. It's one of our key initiatives going forward. And to that end, we've made several key equity investments in partners such as Traxo, BlockSky, and New Travel. And these companies together, we truly feel like, along with technology that we're building, will move our omnichannel vision forward. From shopping to booking to ticketing and all the way through to servicing and settlement. I think we've lined up partners that can complement us to provide that entire vision.
Even though the travel industry is contending with the impacts of COVID, a lot of companies are very interested in solving these problems and creating a more connected omnichannel environment. And not only will that help the travel industry operate more efficiently, it will also create a much better experience for the traveler.